Decoded Part 1. Prologue, the dig site of human memory. Stories are the oldest technology we have. Older than the plow. Older than writing. Older than the wheel. We were running story software long before we knew what software was. You've been running it since before you could speak. Fairy tales, religious verses, political slogans, blockbusters, news headlines, different costumes, same machinery. And here's the truth no one says out loud. Every story is a survival program. Some teach you how to eat. Some teach you who to trust. Some tell you who's in charge. Some tell you what happens if you cross the wrong line. They don't come from nowhere. They're not arbitrary. They're the distilled memory of thousands of years of trial and error. The instruction manuals our ancestors smuggled through time. Why the stories change. The oldest versions were blunt. Dangerous things. They told you how to get food without getting killed. How to spot betrayal before the knife hit your back. How to stay alive through flood, fire, famine, and war. Then came the kings, priests, and later, corporations. And they learned something important. If everyone knows the survival tricks, no one's easy to control. So the stories were rewritten. The teeth were filed down. The dangerous instructions were buried under layers of morality plays, romance, or comedy. Don't steal from the storehouse or we'll kill you became be patient, and the gods will provide. Don't marry into that tribe. They're planning a coup. Became the princess fell in love with a humble shepherd. The king starved us while filling his own silos. Became the gods sent a famine to test our faith. By the time the story reaches you, it's often a cartoon or a Hollywood spectacle. The surface is shiny. The core is still there, but buried. The 9 survival laws. Underneath the costumes, every human story runs on one or more of these 9 laws. Hunger and scarcity. Control the resources. Control the people. Sex, power, and marriage politics. Alliances and bloodlines as political currency. Oaths, betrayal, and revenge. Loyalty as currency. Betrayal as debt. Death and fate. Mortality and inevitability as behavioral levers. Justice, law, and social order. Who makes the rules and how they're enforced. Trickery and survival. Cunning is the backdoor into a rigged game. Violence as moral enforcement. Force used as a public lesson. Taboo warnings. The fences that define civilization. Cosmology training. The map of the universe and your place in it. Once you can see these laws, you'll spot them everywhere. In ancient myths, in blockbuster films, in headlines, even in how your workplace or community runs. The plan. This book is an excavation. We're going to dig down through the layers of edits and rewrites until we hit the original survival code. For each of the 9 laws, we'll start with the oldest version we can find. Trace how it was mutated by politics, religion, empire, and commerce. Show the modern equivalent running in your life right now. The goal isn't nostalgia. It's recognition. When you know the story you're living inside, you can see the moves before they happen. And once you can see the moves, you can choose which ones you still want to play. The cycle has been running for thousands of years. The question isn't whether it will happen again. The question is, when it does, will you be a character in someone else's script or the author of your own? Stratum I. Hunger and scarcity. Law 1. Control the flow. Control the people. Before there were kings, temples, or laws carved in stone, there was the law of the empty stomach. Scarcity is the first enforcer, the first reason humans obeyed someone else. If you can control the food, water, or shelter, you don't need to control anything else, because the choice becomes simple: obey or starve. The oldest human stories aren't about love, glory, or honor. They're about who gets to eat, who doesn't, and who decides. Phase 1. Mythic Foundations. When nature held the whip. Atrahasis/Iridu Genesis Mesopotamia. C. 2100 to 1700 BCE. Original plot. The gods are overwhelmed by humanity's noise, overpopulation, overuse of land and water. They send plague, drought, and finally a flood to reduce numbers. The god Enki warns Atrahasis to build a boat, saving his family and livestock. The real code. Early warning is survival. Survival information is not public. It's reserved for the chosen few. Disaster doubles as population reset. Manipulations. Later versions Noah shift the cause from environmental stress to moral sin. Survival is framed as divine reward, not practical readiness. Modern echo. Private disaster bunkers, elite evacuation plans, classified climate intelligence. Impact on thinking. Conditions people to accept survival as a privilege granted by those in the know. The flood of Gilgamesh, Mesopotamia. C. 2000 to 1600 BCE. Original plot. Gilgamesh meets Utnapishtim, survivor of a great flood almost identical to Atrahasis. His story is embedded in Gilgamesh's personal quest for immortality. The real code. Survivors become the keepers of knowledge and rules for next time. The disaster is folded into elite origin myths. Manipulations. Focus shifted from communal survival to one man's hero journey. Modern echo. Post-apocalyptic stories that center lone heroes. I Am Legend. The Road. Impact on thinking. Frames survival as an individual quest instead of a collective effort. Deucalion and Pyrrha, Greece. C. 700 BCE. Original plot. Zeus floods the world. Deucalion and Pyrrha survive in a chest, then repopulate the earth by throwing stones over their shoulders, which turn into people. The real code. Recovery framed as divine gift, not human action. Practical survival knowledge hidden under magic. Manipulations. Turns logistical recovery into a miracle, keeping survival permissions in divine hands. Modern echo. Post-disaster rebuilding framed as blessing rather than policy or preparation. Impact on thinking. Teaches people to wait for authority to allow recovery. Egyptian Nilometer myths, Egypt. C. 2000 BCE. Original plot. Priests measure Nile flood levels using sacred markers, predicting harvests, and setting grain rations. The process is framed as divine insight. The real code. Whoever measures the resource controls its story. Controlling data equal controlling distribution. Manipulations. Wrapped in religious ceremony to obscure administrative power. Modern echo. Economic statistics used as political levers. Inflation, unemployment, GDP. Impact on thinking. Trains populations to treat official numbers as objective truth. Joseph and the 7-year famine, ancient Israel/Egypt. C. 7th to 5th BCE. Original plot. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream of 7 good years followed by 7 bad. Grain is stored in abundance, then sold during famine, until people sell land and freedom for food. The real code. Stockpiling resources equal leverage over population. Aid becomes a mechanism for asset capture. Manipulations. Recast as divine providence instead of political consolidation. Modern echo. IMF loans and structural adjustment programs during crises. Impact on thinking. Makes economic exploitation look like moral leadership. Phase 2. Cross-cultural variants. The same law in different clothes. You the Great tames the flood. China. C. 21st BC. Original plot. Before you, heroes tried to stop catastrophic floods by building dams, but the waters always broke through. You took a different approach. He surveyed the land for years, dug channels to guide the floodwaters to the sea, and created the first irrigation systems. His work earned him the mandate of heaven and the throne. The real code. Whoever controls water management controls political legitimacy. Infrastructure plus surveying equal long-term food security and loyalty. Manipulations. Turned into a founding myth. Authority portrayed as divinely earned. hiding the political control inherent in holding the water map. Modern echo. Large-scale dam projects framed as nation-building. Three Gorges Dam, Hoover Dam. Impact on thinking. Teaches that mastery over scarcity is the natural qualification for rulership. Tiddalik the Frog, Aboriginal Australia. Oral Antiquity. Original plot. Tiddalik, a giant frog, drinks all the water in the land. The animals must make him laugh to force him to spit it out, releasing the water and saving them from drought. The real code. One actor monopolizing a resource can starve the entire system. Direct confrontation may fail. Cleverness and collective effort can break a monopoly. Manipulations. Later colonial versions softened it into a light-hearted children's tale, erasing its function as a law against hoarding water. Modern echo. Grassroots campaigns breaking corporate water rights monopolies, e.g. Cochabamba Water War. Impact on thinking. Encodes that social intelligence can open gates brute force cannot. Sedna, mistress of the sea beasts, Inuit. Ancient oral cycle. Original plot. Sedna is betrayed by her father and cast into the sea, where she becomes ruler of marine animals. If hunters break taboos against waste or overhunting, Sedna withholds seals and whales until a shaman appeases her. The real code. Food security tied to compliance with ecological limits. Scarcity is used as enforcement for sustainable practices. Manipulations. Missionaries reframe the story as superstition, stripping its ecological governance role. Modern echo. Modern fishing quotas and conservation laws framed as science rather than sacred law. Impact on thinking. Ties survival to ritualized conservation. Break the rules. Lose the food. Fimbulwinter Norse, Oral Antiquity. Written c. 13th c. Original plot. 3 winters arrive without a summer in between. Crops fail. Animals die. And humans turn on each other before the final battle of Ragnarok. The real code. Multi-year scarcity tests social cohesion more than it tests agriculture. Collapse is often slow attrition before a sudden end. Manipulations. Saga retellings glamorize the heroic battle at the end, overshadowing the real killer, starvation. Modern echo. Climate change framed through dramatic disasters, hurricanes, wildfires, while slow crises, soil depletion, aquifer loss are ignored. Impact on thinking. Shifts preparation away from slow burn threats toward last-minute heroics. Bochica's flood Musca. Andes. Pre-Columbian. Original plot. A flood devastates the Bogota Plateau until Bochica arrives and cuts a path for the river, creating Tequendama Falls and restoring the land. The real code. Geoengineering as disaster recovery and political legitimacy. Control of water flow equal control of agricultural revival. Manipulations. Spanish chroniclers recast it as pagan fantasy, erasing the hydraulic engineering knowledge. Modern echo. Post-disaster reconstruction projects framed as gifts from the state. Impact on thinking. Connect survival to the intervention of a single, central figure. Phase 3. Historical and political use. When scarcity became policy. Annona and the grain dole Rome. 2nd C. BCE 3rd C. C. Original plot. Rome secures grain imports from Egypt and Sicily, distributing free or cheap bread to citizens. Emperors boast of panem et circenses, bread and circuses, to keep the urban masses content. The real code. Urban stability is a logistics problem. Whoever controls the food supply to the capital controls the politics of the capital. Manipulations. Marketed as imperial generosity, but designed to prevent revolt and ensure loyalty. Modern echo. Subsidized stables in capitals before elections. Welfare programs timed to political needs. Impact on thinking. Trains people to see food rations as a natural benefit of citizenship, rather than a tool for political control. Ever normal granaries China. Han to Qing dynasties. Original plot. State-run granaries buy grain when prices are low, store it, and release it in bad harvest years to stabilize the market. The real code. Price stability equal political stability. Controlling grain stockpiles means controlling both food and economic mood. Manipulations. Corruption and favoritism at the local level turn public relief into personal patronage. Modern eco. Strategic oil reserves and government commodity stockpiles used to influence global markets. Impact on thinking. Makes technocratic control of scarcity feel like rational governance, rather than concentrated power. Coca storehouses and Meta Labor Inca Empire, 15th to 16th. Original plot. Terraced farming supports vast imperial storehouses Coca along Inca roads. Citizens pay labor tax Meta to stockpile food, which the state releases in famine years. The real code. Networked storage secures the empire against local failure. Survival resources flow through the emperor's hands, ensuring loyalty. Manipulations. Spanish chroniclers alternately praised the system or called it coercive, obscuring its original reciprocity model. Modern echo. International aid tied to labor or political conditions. Impact on thinking. Links survival security to obedience to centralized authority. Tithe barns and church granaries, medieval Europe. Original plot. Peasants give a tenth of their produce to the church. Clergy control the storage and release food in times of scarcity. The real code. Hunger relief bound to religious compliance. Scarcity as a moral test. Feed the obedient. Starve the rebellious. Manipulations. Famine framed as divine punishment, with relief as divine mercy. Modern echo. Faith-based aid organizations conditioning help on conversion or belief alignment. Impact on thinking. Deepens the connection between moral obedience and access to survival. Phase 4. Colonial and ideological manipulation. Scarcity as a weapon of empire. The Great Irish Famine, 1845 to 1852. Original plot. Potato blight devastates Ireland's primary food crop. While the Irish starve, British landlords continue exporting grain, beef, and butter to England. Relief is tied to workhouses and moral improvement schemes. The real code. Exporting food during famine turns scarcity into an enforcement tool. Moral aid conditions reinforce the colonial hierarchy. Manipulations. Framed as a natural disaster worsened by Irish backwardness. Hiding policy-driven starvation. Modern echo. Food aid tied to political concessions or market access. Impact on thinking. Teaches colonized populations to internalize blame for scarcity engineered by outside control. Bengal Famine 1943 to 1944. Original plot. Wartime requisitioning, hoarding, and price manipulation lead to famine in British-ruled Bengal. Shipping priorities keep food flowing to troops and other colonies while civilians starve. The real code. Supply allocation in crisis becomes a geopolitical choice. Information control media blackout masks the true scale. Manipulations. Official denials and racial stereotypes shift blame from policy to local inefficiency. Modern echo. Government mandated media silence on shortages to prevent panic. Impact on thinking. Conditions acceptance of shortages as unavoidable rather than engineered. Holodomor, Ukraine, 1932 to 1933. Original plot. Forced collectivization, impossibly high grain quotas, and sealed borders cause mass starvation in Ukraine. The famine is denied by Soviet authorities. Aid is blocked. The real code. Extraction quotas can weaponize scarcity to punish political resistance. Border control becomes a hunger valve. Manipulations. Portrayed as a result of poor harvests or sabotage by peasants. Modern echo. Economic sanctions and trade blockades causing shortages framed as self-inflicted by the target nation. Impact on thinking. Encourages fear-based compliance with state-imposed production demands. Great Leap Forward Famine China, 1959 to 1961. Original plot. Inflated grain reports. Collectivized farms and punitive procurement lead to massive shortages. Local officials hide failure to avoid punishment. Millions die. The real code. False data up the chain guarantees real scarcity at the bottom. Metrics replace reality, and punishment for failure silences warnings. Manipulations, blamed on natural disasters to avoid admitting systemic policy failure. Modern echo, KPI-driven governance creating shortages by distorting supply reporting. Impact on thinking, trains obedience to official numbers over observable reality. Ethiopian famine and media 1983 to 1985. Original plot, drought combines with war and forced resettlement policies to cause mass starvation. Images of starving children spark a massive global charity campaign. The real code, the image economy determines where aid flows. Media attention becomes a resource in itself. Manipulations, stripped of political context. Famine is portrayed as purely natural tragedy. Modern echo, selective media focus on photogenic crises while ignoring politically sensitive ones. Impact on thinking, reinforces charity as the solution while hiding structural causes. Phase 5, modern and pop culture, scarcity in the age of spectacle. Mad Max, Fury Road 2015. Original plot, in a desert wasteland, Immortan Joe controls the only reliable water source, releasing it in brief, theatrical bursts to the desperate masses below. The real code, Valve sovereignty. Whoever controls the tap controls the people. Scarcity management is turned into ritualized power display. Manipulations, the story frames Joe's control as cartoon villainy, making the lesson easier to dismiss as fiction. Modern echo, corporate or state control of water rights. Drought-era day zero water rationing policies. Impact on thinking, normalizes the idea that the person controlling the gate decides who lives well and who dies thirsty. Snowpiercer 2013. Original plot, a failed climate experiment freezes the world. The last humans live on a train, with strict class divisions. The poorest survive on protein blocks, while the elite dine luxuriously. The real code, closed systems justify strict rationing and entrenched inequality. Scarcity is enforced to preserve hierarchy. Manipulations, frames the revolt as a change in leadership rather than dismantling the rationing system itself. Modern echo, tiered access to essential resources in gated communities and climate-secure zones. Impact on thinking, teaches that in closed systems, class divisions are practical survival measures. The Hunger Games 2008 to 2015. Original plot, after a failed rebellion, the capital enforces control over the districts through scarcity. Food is rationed. The annual games use spectacle and fear to maintain submission. The real code, bred for obedience, reward compliance with calories. Spectacle as a distraction from structural deprivation. Manipulations, love triangle subplots dilute the political mechanics of food control. Modern echo, international sanctions and aid corridors as political leverage. Impact on thinking, conditions acceptance of ration-based control as a natural consequence of rebellion. Dune 1965 novel modern film. Original plot, the universe runs on spice, found only on the desert planet Arrakis. Control of spice equals control of commerce, politics, and life. The real code, choke point commodity equal ultimate scarcity weapon. Whoever controls the monopoly substance writes the rules. Manipulations, religious prophecies mask supply chain politics. Modern echo, rare earth mineral monopolies, energy choke points, global shipping lanes. Impact on thinking, encourages belief that monopolies on key resources are inevitable and unchallengeable. News and policy messaging 21st C. Original plot, media frames shortages with euphemisms. Supply chain disruption, food desert, price stabilization, strategic reserves. The real code, language launders accountability. Scarcity reframed as act of nature rather than policy outcome. Manipulations, obscures decision makers behind passive language. Modern echo, energy rationing presented as demand management. Crop failures as unexpected variability. Impact on thinking, trains the public to debate narratives instead of questioning resource management decisions. Codex fragment, law of hunger control, measure to rule. If you control the measurements, you control the story. Stockpiles are thrones. Store in abundance. Ration in famine. Valve sovereignty. The hand on the tap is the real government. Moral cover. Wrap deprivation in virtue. Sustainability. Patriotism. Divine will. Seed custody. Control food at its source. No seed, no independence. Euphemism doctrine. Rename shortages to hide their cause. Image economy. Show some suffering to raise aid. Hide the rest to maintain control. Quota logic. Starve with a spreadsheet. Blame the numbers. Black market harness. Map informal supply chains. Use them until you don't need them, then shut them down. Synthesis. Law 1 in full view. From Atrahasis' flood tablets to the Hunger Games. The message hasn't changed. Whoever controls food, water, and shelter controls obedience. Scarcity begins as weather but becomes policy once someone decides who eats. Control is enforced through rationing, secrecy, and selective relief. Public narratives frame deprivation as fate or moral lesson, never as deliberate engineering. In collapse, Law 1 reactivates instantly. Markets vanish. Barter and black markets take over. Those with seed, storage, or water become local kings. The first new government is the ration line. The first new myth is, who saved us? Stratum 2, sex, power, and marriage politics. Law 2, reproduction and alliance are the original mergers and acquisitions. Food keeps you alive. Sex and alliance decide who's still alive in the next generation. Marriage, whether between people, clans, or states, has always been more about contracts than love. For most of history, romance was a luxury add-on to the core business deal. Who gets whose bloodline, property, skills, and loyalties. The stories we inherit in this category aren't love stories. They're manuals for controlling inheritance, consolidating wealth, and deciding which alliances survive. Phase 1, Mythic Foundations. When the gods wrote the marriage contracts. Adam and Eve, Ancient Near East. First millennium BCE. Original plot. The first humans live in paradise until Eve is persuaded by the serpent to eat forbidden fruit. God expels them from Eden, cursing Eve with pain in childbirth and placing her under Adam's authority. The real code establishes gender hierarchy tied to reproduction. Female autonomy framed as a direct threat to social order. Manipulations. Earlier goddess and fertility traditions inverted into a sin narrative to justify male dominance. Modern echo. Religious and political frameworks that legislate reproductive rights as moral or divine issues. Impact on thinking. Hardwires the idea that control of reproduction is the natural domain of male or divine authority. Persephone and Hades, Greece. 70H to 60HC. BC. Original plot. Hades abducts Persephone. Demeter, her mother and goddess of harvest, halts the growth of crops and grief. A deal is struck. Persephone spends part of the year with Hades, part with Demeter. The real code. Marriage as political treaty between realms. Reproductive control leveraged for economic power. Manipulations. Romanticized as love in the underworld, masking the economic strike at its center. Modern echo. Arranged marriages between elite families to cement corporate or political mergers. Impact on thinking. Normalizes women as bargaining chips in power negotiations. Helen of Troy, Greece. C. 8C. BC. Original plot. Helen's abduction or elopement triggers the Trojan War, drawing alliances into a decade-long siege. The real code. Marriage alliances as geopolitical powder kegs. Women as literal and symbolic property in interstate disputes. Manipulations. Framed as a romantic tragedy, obscuring its roots in control of trade routes and resources. Modern echo. High-profile marriages / divorces influencing stock markets. corporate control, or political optics. Impact on thinking. Encourages the belief that wars over partners are about honor, not economics. Ramayana, Sita's abduction India. Oral antiquity. Written c. 5th to 4th BCE. Original plot. Sita is kidnapped by Ravana, leading to a war for her rescue. Upon return, she must prove her chastity through a trial by fire. The real code. Female sexual purity as a proxy for male legitimacy. Rescue, still followed by suspicion and testing. Manipulations, retold as devotional romance, minimizing political stakes and coercion. Modern echo. Victim blaming in modern sexual violence cases. Impact on thinking. Embeds purity tests as a political and social control tool. Phase 2. Historical and political alliances. Marriage as state weapon. Esther Achaemenid Persia. 5th to 4th BCE. Original plot. A Jewish woman, Esther, becomes queen of Persia while concealing her heritage. When her people face extermination, she uses her position to influence the king and avert the genocide. The real code. Marriage as political shield. Protecting an entire community through a personal alliance. Influence at the highest level is tied to intimate access. Manipulations. Later retellings amplify her beauty and obedience, downplaying the political strategy and calculated risk. Modern echo. Strategic marriages into political dynasties or business empires. Impact on thinking. Teaches that women's political agency is acceptable only when exercised in service to male authority or national loyalty. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar / Mark Antony, Egypt / Rome. First C. BCE. Original plot. Cleopatra aligns with Caesar, then Antony, to preserve Egypt's sovereignty. Both alliances end in political disaster. Egypt becomes a Roman province. The real code. Sexual alliance as geopolitical treaty. Education, multilingual skill, and political intelligence as force multipliers in elite relationships. Manipulations. Roman propaganda reframes Cleopatra as a seductress to undermine her legitimacy as a strategist. Modern echo. Media smear campaigns against politically influential women, focusing on relationships over policy achievements. Impact on thinking. Reinforces stereotypes of powerful women as manipulative rather than competent. Isis and Osiris Egypt. c. 2400 BCE. Original plot. Osiris is murdered and dismembered by his brother Set. Isis reassembles him, conceives Horus, and hides her son until he can reclaim the throne. The real code. Marriage is dynastic insurance, preserving the royal bloodline despite systemic attack. Female agency in securing political succession. Manipulations. Later romanticized into a love story, stripping out its succession strategy and political stakes. Modern echo. Surrogacy, strategic remarriage, and other reproductive maneuvers to secure inheritance lines in elite families. Impact on thinking. Normalizes extreme measures to preserve lineage as noble duty. Swan maiden cycle Eurasia. Oral antiquity. Medieval record. Original plot. A man steals the magical garment of a supernatural woman, forcing her to marry him. She eventually recovers it and leaves, sometimes taking their children. The real code. Control someone's freedom by controlling their tools, identity, or mobility. Marriage is captivity disguised as alliance. Manipulations. Romanticized in children's literature, erasing the element of coercion. Modern echo. Immigration and visa dependency in marriages, where one spouse's legal status depends entirely on the other. Impact on thinking. Conditions acceptance of relationships structured around dependency and control. Tower of Babel, Mesopotamia. First millennium BCE. Original plot. Humanity, united by one language, begins building a tower to reach heaven. God confuses their speech and scatters them. The real code. Shared language is the ultimate alliance tool. Breaking linguistic unity prevents large-scale cooperation, like dissolving a marriage between nations. Manipulations shifted into a moral tale about humility before God, obscuring its political function of division. Modern echo, use of incompatible standards, specialized jargon, and propaganda slang to fracture potential coalitions. Impact on thinking makes language fragmentation seem natural and inevitable, masking its use as a deliberate control tactic. Phase 3. Firstborn killing archetypes and knowledge hoarding. Exodus. Death of the firstborn ancient Israel. First millennium BCE. Original plot. The final plague before Israel's liberation from Egypt is the death of every Egyptian firstborn. The Israelites are spared by marking their doors with lamb's blood. The real code. Eliminate heirs to destabilize a ruling class and break succession. A targeted generational reset creates power vacuums ripe for takeover. Manipulations, framed as divine justice rather than a political strategy to collapse Egyptian dynasties. Modern echo, targeted political assassinations or decapitation strikes aimed at removing future leaders. Impact on thinking, reinforces that eliminating heirs can be morally justified if cast as liberation. Herod's massacre of the innocents Gospel of Matthew. First C. Original plot. Fearing a prophecy of a newborn king of the Jews, Herod orders the killing of all male infants in Bethlehem. The real code. Preemptive purges prevent rivals before they can grow into threats. Marriage and alliance networks are disrupted by erasing potential inheritors. Manipulations, portrayed solely as paranoid cruelty rather than calculated political prevention. Modern echo, policies and campaigns designed to reduce or eliminate leadership potential in opposing groups. Impact on thinking, makes population control through targeted youth removal seem a necessary evil in political struggles. The Child Hunt, folktale variants global. Original plot, a ruler, witch, or supernatural force seeks to capture or kill specific children prophesied to overthrow them. The real code. The fear of prophecy is the fear of losing power to the next generation. Alliance destruction by removing a child who unites rival houses or tribes. Manipulations, given supernatural overtones to deflect from real-world political motives. Modern echo, suppression or exile of politically significant heirs in royal or corporate families. Impact on thinking, builds the belief that future threats must be neutralized before they mature. The midwife's secret European folklore. Original plot. A midwife is given hidden knowledge by supernatural beings, but forbidden to share it. If she breaks the promise, she loses her sight or is cursed. The real code. Controlling reproductive and birthing knowledge ensures dependency. Restricting midwifery locks control of population growth to sanctioned authorities. Manipulations. Midwives reframed as witches to centralize reproductive authority under church or state. Modern echo, regulation of reproductive health care and restrictions on midwifery or fertility treatments. Impact on thinking, normalizes the idea that reproduction and birth practices must be under institutional control. Language and literacy restrictions, global historical practice. Original plot. Only the priestly or ruling class can read sacred or legal texts. Others depend on them for contracts, marriage laws, and inheritance rights. The real code. Literacy is a gatekeeping tool for controlling alliances, property, and succession. Language barriers are power barriers. Manipulations, codifying laws in dead or elite languages to block general access. Modern echo, legalese, corporate jargon, and proprietary technical standards as barriers to participation. Impact on thinking, conditions people to see the rules as too complex for them to interpret, reinforcing dependency on gatekeepers. Phase 4. Colonial and ideological marriage control. Alliance boundaries by law. Spanish and Portuguese colonial marriage laws 16th to 18th. Original plot. Colonial administrations encouraged or mandated marriages between settlers and local elites to create a loyal mixed blood intermediary class. These unions were meant to cement alliances and integrate local leadership into imperial structures. The real code. Marriage as a biological treaty to merge ruling networks and dilute resistance. Children become living symbols of loyalty to empire. Manipulations. Framed as civilizing and integration, masking its role in eroding independent indigenous governance. Modern echo. Immigration incentives or targeted marriage programs designed to shape demographics. Impact on thinking. Normalizes engineered population blending as benevolent policy. British Raj and Anglo-Indian alliances 19th C. Original plot. In early colonial India, British officers often married or lived with Indian women from elite families, strengthening ties. Later, such unions were discouraged or banned as they blurred racial and class divisions. The real code. Sexual alliances tolerated when they reinforced dominance, outlawed when they threatened to dissolve power boundaries. Manipulations. Early relationships romanticized in memoirs. Later restrictions framed as protecting culture. Modern echo. Corporate and political PR-friendly diversity until it begins to shift real power. Impact on thinking. Teaches that inclusion is conditional and reversible. Sharia and religious marriage codes, Islamic empires. Medieval present. Original plot. Religious law regulates marriage eligibility, inheritance, divorce, and polygamy, defining family structure in moral and legal terms. The real code. Centralized religious authority over family life ensures loyalty flows upward. Inheritance rules preserve wealth within approved networks. Manipulations. Religious codes expanded or altered to serve ruling dynasties' political agendas. Modern echo. State-defined marriage laws controlling legal recognition, benefits, and citizenship rights. Impact on thinking. Blurs the line between moral obedience and legal compliance. Canon law and European nobility need medieval early modern. Original plot. Church approval was required for noble marriages. Annulments could be granted or denied based on political advantage, effectively controlling succession and land transfer. The real code. Religious marriage authority as a political veto power. Control of alliances through legal recognition of unions. Manipulations. Framed as moral oversight for the good of the family while serving territorial consolidation. Modern echo. Legal battles over marriage recognition used to shape political and economic alliances. Impact on thinking. Reinforces the idea that unions are subject to system approval. Identity politics and relationship norms 20th to 21 STC. Original plot. Social movements challenge old boundaries on who can marry whom interracial, same-sex, interfaith, while political and corporate powers decide when and how to adopt these changes. The real code. Inclusion boundaries are managed to control which alliances can form without threatening the hierarchy. Legal recognition can be withheld or granted to influence voting blocks and cultural alignment. Manipulations. Corporate sponsorship of social movements to steer their pace and scope. Modern echo. Selective legal recognition of relationships timed for political or economic advantage. Impact on thinking. Reinforces that the legitimacy of relationships is granted, not inherent. Codex Fragment. The Alliance Control Manual. Rule 1. Marriage is a treaty. Treat every union as a contract of land, wealth, and influence first. Love is optional. Leverage is not. Rule 2. Bloodline equal asset class. Children are political capital. Control who can produce them, inherit, and pass titles. Rule 3. Language is a border. A shared language builds alliances. Fragment it to prevent dangerous coalitions. Rule 4. Destroy the heir. Break the chain. Remove firstborns or promising successors to collapse dynastic continuity. Rule 5. Control the midwives. Restrict reproductive knowledge to keep population and inheritance in approved channels. Rule 6. Approve the union. Approve the alliance. Make legal recognition of marriage the choke point for forming significant partnerships. Rule 7. Inclusion on your terms. Grant social or legal recognition only when it strengthens, not threatens, the system. Rule 8. Rewrite the romance. Reframe coercion as love, captivity as protection, exclusion as tradition. Synthesis. Law 2 in full view. From Adam and Eve's curse to corporate PR marriages. The same operating code runs through every version. Control alliance formation. Decide who can bond, breed, or collaborate. Control reproductive outcomes. Determine who inherits property, land, or leadership. Control communication, fragment language, ideology, or access to knowledge to weaken potential alliances. Eliminate rival bloodlines. Remove heirs before they can challenge the hierarchy. Ancient tools. Arranged marriages, bride price contracts, language bans, targeted infanticide, priestly literacy monopolies. Modern tools. Ideological purity tests, licensing systems, immigration/marriage dependency, legal recognition control, demographic engineering, impact on humanity. Sex, reproduction, and alliances have been systematically shaped to keep populations unpredictable. Controllable configurations. People are taught to self-police their relationships, cutting off potential allies because their label doesn't match. A modern Tower of Babel built on marriage law and mating norms. Stratum 3. Oaths, betrayal, and revenge. Law 3. Trust is currency. Betrayal is default, and revenge is the collections department. Before money, before formal contracts, before courts, there were oaths. An oath was a binding line of credit on your reputation. You pledged your loyalty, your protection, or your service, and everyone who heard it became a witness to the deal. Break that oath, and you defaulted, not just on a promise, but on your place in the community. Revenge was the debt collection process, restoring balance and deterring the next defaulter. This law is about how trust is created, how it's broken, and how societies, ancient or modern, respond when it collapses. Phase 1. Mythic Foundations. Oaths as life insurance. The descent of Inanna Sumer. c. 1900 to 1600 BCE. Original plot. Inanna travels to the underworld to visit her sister Ereshkigal. Before she leaves, she tells her minister to petition the gods for help if she does not return. She is killed and hung on a hook. Her allies follow the plan and rescue her. The real code. Contingency planning. Bind others to act on your behalf in your absence. Oaths extend your agency beyond your physical presence. Manipulations. Later told primarily as a symbolic death rebirth myth, minimizing its function as a practical loyalty contract. Modern echo. Dead man switch protocols. Journalists releasing data caches if harmed. Impact on thinking. Shows that survival can depend entirely on whether allies honor commitments when you're not there to enforce them. Achilles and Agamemnon, Greece. c. 8th C. BCE. Original plot. Agamemnon dishonors Achilles by seizing his war prize. Achilles withdraws from battle in retaliation, nearly costing the Greeks the war. The real code. Breaking informal honor agreements can be as damaging as breaking formal treaties. Passive revenge withholding action can be more devastating than active attack. Manipulations. Framed as personal pride rather than calculated political pressure. Modern echo. Top executives or key players walking out before major deals or events. Impact on thinking. Reveals that power includes the ability to withhold your skills or resources. Jephthah's vow, ancient Israel. c. 7th to 6th C. BCE. Original plot. Jephthah vows to sacrifice the first thing he sees upon returning home if victorious in battle. His daughter greets him. He fulfills the vow. The real code. Public oaths create binding obligations even when catastrophic. The cost of breaking an oath can be higher than the cost of keeping it. Manipulations. Reframed as proof of devotion to God, hiding the lesson about reckless commitments. Modern echo. No compromise political pledges that end up undermining leaders. Impact on thinking. warns about binding yourself without clear exit clauses. Samson and Delilah, ancient Israel, c. 6th to 5th BCE. Original plot. Samson's strength depends on his uncut hair, part of a vow to God. Delilah, bribed by his enemies, tricks him into revealing the secret and cuts his hair while he sleeps. The real code. Oaths often have a single point of failure. Reveal it, and you're finished. Seduction and intimacy are powerful tools for extracting secrets. Manipulations. Reduced to a cautionary tale about lust instead of operational security. Modern echo. Social engineering hacks to obtain passwords or sensitive data. Impact on thinking. Teaches that betrayal often comes from the person you trust most. Phase 2. Legendary betrayals. The knife inside the circle. Judas Iscariot, Roman Judea. First C. Original plot. Judas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, accepts 30 pieces of silver to identify him to the authorities, leading to his arrest and crucifixion. The real code. The most damaging betrayals come from inside the inner circle. Loyalty can be traded for immediate gain or to force a confrontation. Manipulations. Cast as pure greed or demonic influence, downplaying potential political motives or strategic calculations. Modern echo. Insider leaks of sensitive political or corporate information framed as treachery. Impact on thinking. Instills fear that anyone close to you could switch sides, and moralizes the act as unforgivable. Brutus and Julius Caesar, Rome, 44 BCE. Original plot. Brutus, a close ally and possibly a surrogate son to Caesar, joins the conspiracy to assassinate him for the good of the Republic. The real code. Political betrayal can be justified publicly as service to the greater good. Removing a leader from within their own succession circle can completely reset the power map. Manipulations. Framed either as noble patriotism or tragic personal conflict, ignoring ambition as a factor. Modern echo. Leadership coups in politics and business by former proteges. Impact on thinking. Reinforces that loyalty to an ideal can override loyalty to a person if you control the narrative. Loki and Balder, Norse mythology. Oral antiquity. Written 13c. Original plot. Loki, once an ally to the gods, engineers the death of Balder, the beloved god, setting Ragnarok in motion. The real code. The double agent. Betrayal while still inside the group. Conditional loyalty. A betrayer can remain tolerated if still useful. Manipulations. Modern adaptations recast Loki as a charming anti-hero, softening the treachery. Modern echo. Operatives or advisors working for multiple sides in political or corporate conflicts. Impact on thinking. Normalizes the frenemy archetype as acceptable if entertaining or strategically valuable. Kyohime, Japan. Medieval period. Original plot. A young woman falls in love with a monk who promises to be with her but later avoids her. Realizing his betrayal, she transforms into a dragon and burns him alive inside a temple bell. The real code. Emotional oaths carry the same weight and risks as political ones. Broken intimacy can trigger transformation into a perceived existential threat. Manipulations. Recast as a warning against female jealousy, downplaying the original focus on vow breaking. Modern echo. Romantic revenge narratives in thrillers and dramas. Impact on thinking. Warns that personal betrayal can escalate faster and more destructively than political betrayal. Othello and Iago, Shakespeare, 1603. Original plot. Iago manipulates Othello into believing his wife is unfaithful, leading to tragedy. The real code. Indirect betrayal. Create the conditions for another person to commit the act. Weaponizing trust to redirect loyalty toward destruction. Manipulations. Often presented as a story of jealousy, obscuring its lessons about manipulation and perception control. Modern echo. Misinformation campaigns designed to fracture alliances in politics or business. Impact on thinking. Shows that betrayal doesn't require breaking your own oath. you can engineer someone else to break theirs. Phase 3. Modern and institutional betrayals. System-level treachery. Corporate NDAs and loyalty clauses. Original plot. Employees or partners sign non-disclosure agreements, non-competes, or loyalty contracts to protect trade secrets and maintain competitive advantage. Breaching them often results in lawsuits, blacklisting, or financial ruin. The real code. Written oaths replace verbal vows, but carry the same function. They formalize trust as a contractual commodity. Breaking them is framed as betrayal, even when exposing wrongdoing. Manipulations. Branded as standard legal practice, masking their use to silence whistleblowers or suppress competition. Modern echo. Tech workers prosecuted for leaking unethical practices. Creatives locked out of their own work by contract clauses. Impact on thinking. Normalizes the idea that loyalty to the institution outweighs loyalty to ethics or the public good. Espionage and double agents. Original plot. An operative works for one side while secretly providing information to another. Double agents often play both ends until caught or burned. The real code. Dual loyalty maximizes leverage, but ensures eventual exposure. Betrayal is often timed for maximum political or strategic advantage. Manipulations. Popular media romanticizes spies as lone wolves, minimizing the catastrophic effects on entire networks when they turn. Modern echo. Cold War defections. Corporate moles leaking trade secrets to rivals. Impact on thinking. Conditions the audience to see betrayal as an individual drama rather than a systemic security failure. Whistleblowers. Original plot. An insider exposes corruption, abuse, or illegal activity within their organization, often at great personal risk. The real code. Loyalty to principle versus loyalty to group. Breaking the oath is reframed as moral duty when the oath itself serves corruption. Manipulations. Media portrayal flips between heroic martyr and treacherous sellout depending on political alignment. Modern echo. Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Frances Haugen. Celebrated by some, vilified by others. Impact on thinking. Splits audiences into truth above loyalty and loyalty above all camps. Political defection. Original plot. A high-ranking official switches parties, sides, or nations, often taking sensitive information or strategic advantage with them. The real code. Breaking political oaths is a power move that can redraw the map instantly. Legitimacy is redefined by the side telling the story. Manipulations. Marketed as either a principled stand or cynical opportunism depending on audience. Modern echo. Party switches during legislative battles. Cold War-era defectors. Impact on thinking. Normalizes the idea that loyalty is conditional, transactional, and subject to rebranding. John Wick film series, 2014 to 2023. Original plot. An ex-assassin returns to the underworld after his dog, a gift from his late wife, is killed, violating the criminal syndicate's code. His revenge targets everyone involved in breaking the rules. The real code. Even criminal societies depend on oaths. Breaking them invites systemic retaliation. Revenge restores balance to the code as much as it punishes the offender. Manipulations. Stylized as pure action, blurring the code enforcement aspect. Modern echo. Organized crime hits on members who break family rules. Impact on thinking. Reinforces that in some systems, enforcing the code is more important than the morality of the code itself. Phase 4. Pop culture and everyday parallels. Betrayal on the big screen and in daily life. The Godfather trilogy 1972 to 1990. Original plot. The Corleone family operates under a strict internal code of loyalty. Betrayal from within. Tessio's arrangement with rivals. Carlo's complicity in Sonny's murder is met with immediate and lethal retribution. The real code. The oath to the family supersedes all other loyalties. Internal betrayal is punished publicly to reaffirm the code. Manipulations. Frames organized crime as honorable when enforcing internal loyalty, glossing over its exploitation of outsiders. Modern echo. Corporate cultures framing loyalty to the company as loyalty to a family. Impact on thinking. Encourages conflating morality with loyalty to one's in group, regardless of wider ethics. Game of Thrones 2011 to 2019. Original plot. Shocking betrayals. The Red Wedding. Littlefinger's manipulations. Theon's defection. Reshape power structures overnight. The Real Code. In volatile systems, loyalty is constantly tested and renegotiated. A well-timed betrayal can change the entire political map. Manipulations, violence, and spectacle overshadow the calculated, systemic logic behind when and why betrayals occur. Modern echo. Political alliances breaking during key legislative votes or corporate takeovers. Impact on thinking. Conditions audiences to expect betrayal as part of the game, not as a deviation from it. The Departed 2006. Original plot. An undercover cop infiltrates a mob crew while a mob mole infiltrates the police. Both try to uncover each other before being exposed. The Real Code. Parallel betrayals create mirrored instability. No side can fully trust itself. The cost of exposure is total. Manipulations. Marketed as a cat and mouse thriller rather than a systemic breakdown of loyalty networks. Modern echo. Corporate counterintelligence and mutual infiltration between rival organizations. Impact on thinking. Reinforces paranoia as a baseline in competitive systems. Gone Girl 2014. Original plot. A wife stages her own disappearance to frame her husband for murder after discovering his infidelity. The Real Code. Narrative control can weaponize betrayal. Revenge carried out through perception management. Destroying reputation can be more devastating than physical harm. Manipulations. Marketed as a psychological thriller, the mechanics of evidence framing are downplayed. Modern echo. Social media call-outs that ruin reputations before facts are established. Impact on thinking. Trains audiences to see narrative control as the ultimate revenge tool. Social media cancellations. 2010s present. Original plot. Public figures lose careers and status after perceived breaches of trust with their audience or cause. The Real Code. Public loyalty is a performance. Betrayal is punished by mass withdrawal of support. Revenge is crowdsourced, amplified by algorithms. Manipulations. Platforms monetize outrage while presenting themselves as neutral arenas. Modern echo. Sponsorships pulled. Careers ended overnight based on viral narratives. Impact on thinking. Makes loyalty fragile, transactional, and constantly surveilled by the crowd. Codex fragment. The trust ledger. Rule 1. An oath is a credit line. Your reputation is collateral. Break the oath, and you default on the loan. Rule 2. The inner circle is the real danger zone. The deeper the trust, the greater the damage from betrayal. Rule 3. Revenge is debt collection, restores balance, deters future breaches, and repairs reputation. Rule 4. Public oaths are hard currency. Breaking a vow in public view is exponentially costlier than breaking one in private. Rule 5. Loyalty can be rented, not bought. Money secures cooperation temporarily. Belief and shared risk forge real loyalty. Rule 6. The best betrayals are time release. Position yourself. Wait until the optimal moment, and then strike. Rule 7. Narrative is a weapon. Controlling the story around a betrayal can turn treachery into heroism, or loyalty into villainy. Synthesis. Law 3 in full view. From bananas rescue instructions to corporate NDAs, the operating pattern never changes. Trust is currency. Spend it wisely. Betrayal is a default. It bankrupts your credibility. Revenge is the collections process, whether through blade, lawsuit, or public shaming. Ancient tools. Verbal oaths before gods. Blood pacts. Honor duels. Modern tools. Legal contracts. Brand loyalty programs. Reputation management. Algorithmic shaming. Impact on humanity. Betrayal stories are retention training for loyalty systems. They keep you aware that trust is a finite resource, easy to lose, nearly impossible to restore, and dangerous to extend without collateral. They also teach that revenge isn't just personal satisfaction. It's a public accounting, resetting the trust economy in full view of the community. Stratum 4. Death and Fate. Law 4. You can negotiate with the living, but not with the end. Death is the one contract that's never renegotiated. From the first cave burials to the latest sci-fi about escaping mortality, humans have told stories about the moment when time runs out and what happens after. Fate is the scaffolding these stories are built on. In ancient terms, fate was a way to describe inevitability, the outcome you couldn't dodge. In modern terms, it's probability dressed up in poetry. The lesson is always the same. You can play with the odds, but the house always wins. Phase 1. Mythic Foundations. Meeting the End. Egyptian Book of the Dead. Weighing of the Heart, Egypt. c. 1550 BC. Original plot. In the afterlife, the heart of the deceased is weighed against the feather of Mot truth and justice. If lighter, the soul passes on. If heavier, it is devoured by Amit. The real code. Death is a moral audit. Social control through the belief that every action is recorded and judged. Manipulations. Priestly control over funerary rites and afterlife guides turn morality into a paid service. Modern echo. Credit scores, criminal records, and permanent digital footprints. Reputations weighed before access is granted. Impact on thinking. Encourages behavior regulation through fear of posthumous judgment. Oedipus, Greece. 5th C. BCE. Original plot. A prophecy foretells Oedipus will kill his father and marry his mother. His parents abandon him. He's raised elsewhere. In trying to avoid the prophecy, he fulfills it. The real code. Efforts to escape destiny can lock you into it. Overcorrection creates the very problem you're avoiding. Manipulations. Retold as moral punishment for hubris, hiding its commentary on unintended consequences. Modern echo. Security measures that create new vulnerabilities. Overregulation causing black markets. Impact on thinking. Teaches that avoiding one outcome without understanding the system can produce the same outcome by a different route. The Doomed Prince, Egypt. c. 1200 to 1100 BCE. Original plot. A prince is fated to die by snake, crocodile, or dog. His father tries to protect him from all three, but in the end, one finds him. The real code. Multiple threat vectors make total safety impossible. Avoiding one risk can expose you to another. Manipulations. Later versions soften the ending or omit his death, turning it into a romantic adventure. Modern echo. Over specialized disaster plans that leave systems vulnerable to unaddressed risks. Impact on thinking. Instills the understanding that perfect safety is an illusion. Ragnarok, Norse oral antiquity. Written 13th c. Original plot. The gods know the world will end in a great battle. Even knowing they will die, they prepare and fight anyway. The real code. Prepared fatalism. The end is inevitable, but you choose how you meet it. Honor and identity are preserved through the manner of your end. Manipulations. Later romanticized into glory of battle narratives, downplaying the acceptance and preparation phase. Modern echo. Firefighters, soldiers, and activists taking on missions they know are unwinnable but necessary. Impact on thinking. Shows that meaning can be found in the stand, not just the survival. Phase 2. Cross-cultural variants. Different faces of the same end. Lot's wife, ancient Israel. 1st millennium BCE. Original plot. God commands Lot and his family to flee Sodom without looking back. Lot's wife turns to look and is turned into a pillar of salt. The real code. In flight from disaster, hesitation is fatal. Nostalgia for a doomed order can destroy you. Manipulations. framed as disobedience to divine authority, obscuring the survival lesson about not stopping in a retreat. Modern echo. Evacuation orders during disasters. Those who delay or return for belongings often perish. Impact on thinking. Reinforces urgency and obedience in crisis without questioning who gives the order. Mui and the Quest for Immortality Polynesia. Oral Antiquity. Original plot. Mui attempts to grant humans immortality by reversing birth and death. He tries to crawl through the goddess of death, Hai Nui Tpo, but she wakes and kills him. Humans remain mortal forever. The real code. A single failure point can define the fate of an entire species. Overreach in altering natural cycles can backfire catastrophically. Manipulations. Retold as a lighthearted trickster story, downplaying the cosmic stakes. Modern echo. Scientific moonshots, where one miscalculation derails an entire mission. Impact on thinking. Shows that the pursuit of perfection or permanence often carries existential risk. Tale of the Hike. The Bell of Giant Shoja Japan. 13th C. Original plot. The opening lines declare that the proud do not endure. They are like a dream on a spring night. The Hike clan falls despite their power, underscoring the impermanence of all things. The real code. Power is temporary. Fate spares no one. Accepting impermanence is part of wisdom. Manipulations. War epics often focus on battle heroics rather than the Buddhist theme of transience. Modern echo. Rise and fall biographies of political or corporate empires. Impact on thinking. Prepares audiences for loss by framing it as the natural order. King Croesus and the Oracle Lydia. C. 6C. BC. Original plot. Croesus consults the Oracle of Delphi before attacking Persia. The prophecy. If you cross the river, a great empire will fall. He attacks and loses his own empire. The real code. Ambiguous predictions often fulfill themselves through interpretation bias. Overconfidence in foreknowledge can blind you to alternative outcomes. Manipulations. Told as a morality tale about arrogance, obscuring the embedded warning about relying on advisors with unclear motives. Modern echo. Decision-making driven by flawed market forecasts or ambiguous intelligence reports. Impact on thinking. Reinforces that knowing the future is useless without correctly understanding the path to it. The Chameleon and the Lizard, Central and Southern Africa. Oral Antiquity. Original plot. The creator sends the chameleon to tell humans they will live forever, and the lizard to tell them they will die. The slow chameleon is delayed. The lizard arrives first, sealing humanity's fate. The real code. Small delays in communication can change the entire outcome of history. Competing messengers can create conflicting realities. Manipulations. Simplified into a just-so tale, losing its focus on the fragility of timely information. Modern echo. Disaster warnings ignored or received too late due to bureaucratic delay. Impact on thinking. Underscores that the first story often becomes the permanent story. Phase 3. Historical and political uses of fate narratives. Turning inevitability into obedience. Mandate of Heaven, China. Zhou Dynasty. C. 1046 BC onward. Original plot. The right to rule is granted by heaven and can be withdrawn if the ruler becomes unjust, often signaled by disasters or unrest. The real code. Legitimacy is framed as a cosmic inevitability. Rebellion is not treason, it's heaven's will. Fate is used both to justify a ruler's power and to rationalize their removal. Manipulations. Dynasties retroactively revealed omens to claim they had heaven's favor all along. Modern echo. Political rhetoric framing election wins as the will of the people and losses as inevitable fate. Impact on thinking. Trains populations to see leadership changes as part of an unchangeable cosmic cycle, not human agency. Calvinist predestination, Protestant Reformation. 16th C. Original plot. God has already chosen who will be saved and who will be damned. Your actions reveal your status, but cannot change it. The real code. Social hierarchy becomes natural if fate is fixed. Economic success is reframed as evidence of divine favor. Manipulations used to morally justify class divisions and economic inequality. Modern echo, wealth or poverty framed as personal destiny rather than systemic design. Impact on thinking encourages acceptance of one's position as inevitable, reducing appetite for systemic change. The Great Chain of Being Europe, medieval, early modern. Original plot. A divinely ordered hierarchy places God at the top, then angels, kings, nobles, commoners, animals, plants, and minerals in descending order. The real code. Social position is fixed and unchangeable by fate's design. Disobedience to rulers is rebellion against cosmic order. Manipulations. Expanded by monarchies to justify hereditary rule and suppress rebellion. Modern echo. Hierarchical corporate structures framed as natural for efficiency. Impact on thinking. Instills belief that challenging the system is challenging the natural order itself. Astrological fate in monarchy global. Ancient to modern. Original plot. Rulers' births and reigns are tied to celestial events, with fate written in the stars. The real code. Leadership decisions justified by cosmic inevitability. Descent framed as opposing the universe's plan. Manipulations. Astrologers and court scholars rewarded for producing favorable predictions. Modern echo. Data-driven predictions in economics and politics used to create self-fulfilling prophecies. Impact on thinking. Shifts agency away from people and toward supposedly neutral or divine systems. Total war propaganda. We will all die unless. 20th C. Original plot. Governments present existential threats as inevitable unless extreme measures are taken, often expanding state power. The real code. Fate is used to justify otherwise unacceptable actions. Creates a binary, accept the state's plan or accept certain doom. Manipulations. Fate language is tied to patriotism, making dissent appear suicidal or traitorous. Modern echo. Climate emergency messaging that presents only one policy path as survival. Impact on thinking. Reduces complex problems to single track, inevitable solutions controlled by authority. Phase 4. Pop culture and modern parallels. Fate in the age of drama and data. Final Destination film series. 2000 to 2011. Original plot. A character has a premonition of a deadly accident and saves several people. Death then comes for each survivor in the order they should have died. The real code. You can delay fate, but not erase it. The system will balance the books eventually. Manipulations. Marketed as horror entertainment, masking its echo of ancient inevitability myths. Modern echo. Statistical inevitability in insurance and risk assessment. Actuarial fate. Impact on thinking. Makes people see certain outcomes as unavoidable regardless of intervention. The Matrix 1999. Original plot. Neo is told he is the one destined to save humanity, but prophecy turns out to be a tool to guide his choices. The real code. Fate can be engineered to direct someone toward a predetermined outcome. Prophecy becomes a motivational and control mechanism. Manipulations. Romanticized as a hero's journey rather than an exploration of manipulated destiny. Modern echo. Algorithmic predictions influencing behavior until the prediction comes true. Impact on thinking. Highlights that destiny can be manufactured by feeding the right story to the right person. Minority Report 2002. Original plot. A pre-crime. Police unit arrests people before they commit crimes. Based on visions of the future from psychics called precogs. The real code. Treating probability as certainty justifies preemptive control. Fate narratives used to remove due process. Manipulations. Focuses on action thriller elements instead of critiquing predictive policing. Modern echo. AI-driven risk scores used in law enforcement, lending decisions, and hiring. Impact on thinking. Conditions acceptance of intervention based on predicted rather than actual behavior. Avengers. Infinity War and Endgame 2018 to 2019. Original plot. Doctor Strange views millions of possible futures and tells the heroes there's only one path to victory, guiding them to it. The real code. Presenting one outcome as the only way to steer collective action. Fate as a morale-shaping device in leadership. Manipulations. Keeps audience focused on sacrifice and spectacle, not on the strategy of information control. Modern echo. Political or corporate leaders framing policy decisions as the sole viable path. Impact on thinking. Limits perceived options by collapsing the decision tree into one fated choice. COVID-19 pandemic messaging 2020 to 2022. Original plot. Public health campaigns frame the virus's spread and impact as inevitable unless specific guidelines are followed. The real code. Fatalism used to push compliance with centralized instructions. Fate tied to scientific models, treated as fixed outcomes rather than probabilities. Manipulations. Alternative strategies or dissent framed as courting inevitable catastrophe. Modern echo. Climate change messaging using point-of-no-return rhetoric. Impact on thinking. Trains populations to equate survival with obedience to a single centralized narrative. Codex fragment. The fate ledger. Rule 1. Fate is a narrative lever. If people believe the outcome is inevitable, they stop resisting long before it happens. Rule 2. Prophecy is just forecasting in robes. Dress a probability in myth, and it becomes a certainty in the public mind. Rule 3. Delay escape. A postponed end often returns with compounded interest. Rule 4. Ambiguity is ammunition. A vague prediction is a blank check. Any result can be claimed as fulfillment. Rule 5. Ritualize acceptance. Build cultural traditions around inevitable loss to make it palatable. Rule 6. The single path illusion. Frame one option as the only way to survive to limit alternatives. Rule 7. Weaponize mortality. Tie obedience to survival, and survival to fate. And you've closed the loop. Synthesis. Law 4 in full view. From the weighing of the heart in ancient Egypt to final destination and predictive policing, the same control pattern repeats. Frame probability as inevitability. Tie obedience to survival. Reduce options to one fated choice. Use prophecy or prediction to direct action toward your desired outcome. Ancient tools, oracles, omens, cosmic hierarchies, religious prophecy. Modern tools, statistical models, AI risk scores, algorithmic behavior shaping, catastrophe countdowns. Impact on humanity. Fate stories have trained us to confuse probability with destiny and to accept loss or compliance as part of a cosmic or natural order. By wrapping control in inevitability, systems gain compliance without needing constant force, because people will walk themselves into the future they've been told they can't avoid. Stratum V. Justice, law, and social order. Law 5. Rules decide who wins without fighting. Every society has a story about justice, about what's fair, who gets to decide, and how wrongs are put right. But here's the quiet part. The stories about justice don't just describe the rules, they are the rules. From Hammurabi's stone slabs to your company's HR handbook, the narrative defines what counts as a crime, who counts as a criminal, and what punishments are acceptable. The story is the blueprint. The enforcement is just the execution phase. Justice myths don't just teach morality, they train obedience. They make the system look like the natural order of things. Phase 1. Mythic foundations. When law was the voice of the gods. Code of Hammurabi, Babylon. C. 1754 BCE. Original plot. Hammurabi claims the god Shamash gave him the laws. They are carved in stone for all to see. Specific crimes paired with specific punishments. Often, eye for an eye. The real code fixes the idea that law comes from above, divine or royal authority. Public posting of laws creates the illusion of transparency while keeping interpretation in elite hands. Manipulations, portrayed as the birth of justice, but written to protect property owners and cement class divisions. Modern echo, constitutions and legal codes framed as universal fairness while embedding class, racial, or economic bias. Impact on thinking. Instills belief that justice is something handed down, not built from the bottom up. Ma and the Judgment Hall, Egypt. C. 1500 BC. Original plot. After death, hearts are weighed against the feather of Mot. Lies and injustice tip the scale against you. The real code. Justice is universal and eternal. Even rulers will be judged. Behavior is policed not just by law, but by cosmic consequence. Manipulations. Priests control access to rituals, making justice a service you can pay for. Modern echo. Legal representation and access to appeal processes that exist in theory, but cost more than most can afford. Impact on thinking. Teaches that fairness exists, but only if you can access the gatekeepers. Solon's reforms Athens. Early 6th BC. Original plot. Solon rewrites Athenian law to reduce debt slavery, create new political classes, and establish the right to appeal. The real code. Rewriting the rules can prevent revolution without changing who's in charge. Strategic concessions by social stability. Manipulations. Marketed as democracy's birth moment. Ignores that women, slaves, and non-citizens were excluded. Modern echo. Partial reforms passed to diffuse protest movements without addressing root inequalities. Impact on thinking. Conditions the public to accept incremental change as victory. 10 Commandments, ancient Israel. C. 1st millennium BCE. Original plot. God gives Moses 10 core laws for the Israelites, covering morality, worship, and social order. The real code. Centralizes moral authority in one source. Links crime to sin, making disobedience a spiritual as well as civic offense. Manipulations. Over centuries, selectively enforced based on political needs. Modern echo. Legal codes tied to religious doctrine in mixed theocratic systems. Impact on thinking. Encourages seeing law-breaking as moral decay rather than potential resistance to injustice. Phase 2. Cross-cultural law myths. The rules of the game in every language. The Thing and All Thing Norse. Oral antiquity. Formalized c. 930 CE. Original plot. In Norse societies, disputes were settled in open-air assemblies called things, with the Althing in Iceland becoming one of the oldest parliaments. Laws were recited aloud by a speaker for all to hear. The real code. Oral law ensures everyone knows the rules, but interpretation still rests with an elite memory keeper. Public judgment fosters communal buy-in for enforcement. Manipulations. Romanticized as proto-democracy, obscuring the exclusion of women, thralls, slaves, and non-landowners. Modern echo. Town halls and public hearings that appear participatory, but are heavily stage-managed. Impact on thinking. Conditions people to equate public performance of law with fairness, regardless of outcome. Confucian legalism China. C. 5th to 3 RDC. BCE. Original plot. Confucius emphasizes moral virtue and harmony, while legalist thinkers like Han Fei stress strict laws and punishments to maintain order. The real code. Blend of moral education and harsh enforcement to produce compliance. Laws as both carrot and stick. Virtue rewarded, vice punished. Manipulations. Rulers leaned on whichever philosophy suited their immediate political needs, presenting both as consistent with the way. Modern echo. Governments toggling between positive PR campaigns and punitive crackdowns. Impact on thinking. Encourages belief that moral instruction and legal force are two halves of a balanced system, even if they're wielded opportunistically. Iroquois Great Law of Peace North America. Oral antiquity. Original plot. 5 later 6 nations form a confederacy under a shared law promoting peace, consensus decision-making, and collective responsibility. The real code. Laz alliance glue. Resolving disputes to prevent cycles of vengeance. Shared governance to maintain stability across diverse groups. Manipulations. Later colonial interpretations dismissed the system as primitive, erasing its influence on modern democratic structures. Modern echo, confederations, federations, and intergovernmental bodies designed to preserve unity without central domination. Impact on thinking shows that law can be a peacekeeping tool rather than just a punitive one. Yasa of Genghis Khan Mongol Empire. 13th C. Original plot. A unified legal code applies to all under Mongol control, with strict penalties for theft, desertion, and disobedience. The real code. Standardized law enables rapid expansion and cohesion in a multi-ethnic empire. Harsh enforcement creates predictable order in unstable territories. Manipulations. Chroniclers often exaggerated cruelty to frame Mongols as barbaric, ignoring the efficiency of legal standardization. Modern echo. Global trade laws and corporate compliance systems that unify diverse regions under one framework. Impact on thinking. Encourages viewing a single legal framework as essential for large-scale cooperation. Zulu Inkatha and the Kings of Southern Africa. 19th C. Original plot. The king's authority is reinforced through a council and the symbolic binding cord Inkatha, representing the unity of the nation under law. The real code. Symbolic artifacts cement loyalty to law and leader. Law is framed as cultural identity, making dissent feel like betrayal of heritage. Manipulations. Colonial administrators dismissed or co-opted these legal forms to weaken indigenous governance. Modern echo. National flags, constitutions, and other symbols tied to law as identity markers. Impact on thinking. Shows how legal authority is often secured through emotional and symbolic attachment. Phase 3. Historical and political uses of law as control. Justice as a script for power. Trial of Socrates, Athens, 399 BCE. Original plot. Socrates is charged with impiety and corrupting the youth. He defends his actions, but is sentenced to death by a jury of citizens. The real code. Laws can be used to silence dissent under the guise of protecting social order. Justice becomes a tool for ideological conformity. Manipulations. Framed as democracy in action, obscuring its role as political suppression. Modern echo. Use of sedition, treason, or national security laws to prosecute critics. Impact on thinking. Encourages conflating the enforcement of law with the protection of society, even when suppressing truth. Roman. Justice under Caesar Rome. 1st C. BCE. Original plot. Trials and public punishments are used both to maintain order and to display the power of the state. The real code. Justice is theater. The verdict is as much about audience as defendant. Spectacle reinforces the inevitability of state power. Manipulations. Public executions framed as moral necessity while serving as intimidation. Modern echo. High-profile trials televised to set political or social precedent. Impact on thinking. Links justice in the public mind to public display and humiliation. Medieval ordeals Europe. 9th to 13th C. Original plot. Guilt or innocence is decided by surviving dangerous tests. Holding hot iron. Sinking or floating in water. Walking over fire. The real code. Outsources verdict to divine judgment, while central authority controls the setup. Fear of the ordeal coerces confessions and settlements. Manipulations. Framed as leaving judgment to God, masking human manipulation of outcomes. Modern echo. Polygraph tests, stress interviews, and other pseudo-scientific methods used in hiring or investigations. Impact on thinking. Conditions people to accept non-rational evidence as decisive proof. Colonial Legal Code 16th to 20th C. Original plot. Colonizing powers impose their own legal systems, often criminalizing indigenous customs while privileging settler rights. The real code. Legal systems are used to dismantle and replace local governance. Justice is defined to serve economic extraction and social control. Manipulations. Marketed as civilizing and bringing order to lawless lands. Modern echo. trade agreements, and international arbitration courts that favor corporate interests over local sovereignty. Impact on thinking teaches that legitimacy comes from alignment with an imposed system, not from community consensus. Jim Crow laws, United States, 1877 to 1965. Original plot. Segregation laws legally enforce racial hierarchy under the guise of separate but equal. The real code. Law codifies inequality while claiming fairness. Enforcement maintains a social order designed to benefit one group. Manipulations. Language of order and public peace used to frame systemic oppression as justice. Modern echo. Voter suppression laws framed as protecting election integrity. Impact on thinking. Shows how legal frameworks can outlive the ideology that birthed them by embedding bias in neutral language. Phase 4. Modern and pop culture law narratives. Law as drama. Law as branding. To Kill a Mockingbird 1960 novel/1962 film. Original plot. A lawyer defends a black man falsely accused of raping a white woman in the Depression-era South. Despite overwhelming evidence of innocence, the jury convicts. The real code. Law reflects the biases of the society that enforces it. Justice is often defined by majority sentiment, not truth. Manipulations. Framed as a moral parable about individual courage, obscuring the systemic design of the outcome. Modern echo. High-profile trials where public opinion overrides factual evidence. Impact on thinking. Reinforces the romantic notion of the lone righteous lawyer, distracting from structural reform. Law and Order 1990 present. Original plot. Police investigate crimes. Prosecutors try the offenders. Justice is served in neat, hour-long packages. The real code. Reinforces the perception that the legal system is efficient, fair, and ultimately effective. Selective storytelling. Most cases in real life don't follow this arc. Manipulations. Scripted resolution builds trust in institutions while omitting cases of wrongful conviction or systemic abuse. Modern echo. PR campaigns portraying legal systems as smooth, functional machines. Impact on thinking. Normalizes acceptance of law enforcement narratives without questioning real-world accuracy. 12 Angry Men 1957 film. Original plot. A single juror challenges the rest to reconsider their rush to judgment, eventually convincing them to acquit. The real code. The jury system works best when individuals resist groupthink. Moral courage can overcome systemic pressure, but only in ideal conditions. Manipulations. Frames unanimous reason as achievable when in reality, complex biases often persist. Modern echo. Inspirational legal dramas that present rational debate as the norm, not the exception. Impact on thinking. Promotes faith in deliberative justice even when systemic conditions rarely allow it. A Few Good Men 1992. Original plot. A military lawyer defends Marines accused of murder, uncovering that they acted under illegal orders from a superior officer. The real code. The chain of command can be used to cover for injustice. Law can challenge authority, but only if it has the evidence and will. Manipulations. Heroic ending masks how rarely institutions prosecute their own leadership. Modern echo. Corporate internal investigations framed as accountability, even when they shield higher management. Impact on thinking. Keeps belief alive that systems can self-correct, discouraging outside reform pressure. The People vs. O.J. Simpson 2016 miniseries. Original plot. The trial becomes as much about race, celebrity, and media spectacle as it is about guilt or innocence. The real code. Lee is vulnerable to public opinion, media framing, and political pressure. Spectacle can shift the entire focus of a trial. Manipulations. Focus on personalities, obscure systemic flaws in jury selection, policing, and prosecution. Modern echo. Trials turned into media events that prioritize ratings over legal process. Impact on thinking. Equates legal truth with the winning narrative, not the facts. Codex fragment. The rulemaker's playbook. Rule 1. Write the law. Win the game. If you can define the rules, You can predict and control the outcome without fighting. Rule 2. Justice is branding. The appearance of fairness is more important than fairness itself, because perception secures compliance. Rule 3. Publish selectively. Make laws public to build legitimacy, but keep interpretation in the hands of specialists. Rule 4. Use morality as mortar. Frame laws as divine, patriotic, or moral truth so disobedience feels like sin. Rule 5. Control the courtroom theater. Trials are stages. The verdict matters less than the message it sends to the audience. Rule 6. Selective enforcement is a weapon. Apply the same rule differently depending on who you want to empower or destroy. Rule 7. Symbol bind. Tie law to symbols of identity, so opposing the law feels like opposing the culture itself. Rule 8. Build exit illusions. Show rare examples of reform to prove the system works, even if the structure never changes. Synthesis. Law 5 in full view. From Hammurabi's Stone Steely to courtroom TV dramas, the operating pattern hasn't shifted. Write the rules in your favor. Embed bias in neutral language. Tie law to moral or divine authority. Obedience becomes virtue. Control the stage. Make enforcement public, predictable, and theatrical. Enforce selectively to shape power without appearing arbitrary. Ancient tools. Divine mandates. Public executions. Priestly interpreters. Oracles as legal arbiters. Modern tools. Statutory fine print trial by media. Public relations departments for courts. Selective prosecution. Impact on humanity. Justice stories have taught us to accept law as a sacred constant, rather than a human tool that can be rewritten. By framing laws as eternal truths, those in power reduce the appetite for questioning them and keep the population believing the system is the referee, not a player in the game. Stratum 6. Trickery and survival. Law 6. When the game is rigged, the clever don't play by the rules. Cunning isn't the opposite of strength. It's the force multiplier when strength won't do. From foxes in folktales to hackers in data vaults, the archetype of the trickster teaches that survival isn't always about obeying the rules, but about bending, twisting, or rewriting them. These stories exist because open defiance often fails. Outsmarting the system is safer than trying to smash it. The real lesson? If you can't win within the rules, change the board. Phase 1. Mythic Foundations. The first rule breakers. Anansi the Spider, West Africa. Oral Antiquity. Original plot. Anansi uses wit and deception to gain advantage over stronger animals, and even the gods. In one famous story, he tricks other animals into doing his work, then claims the reward. The real code. Outsmart opponents instead of overpowering them. Shift labor and risk onto others while keeping the payoff. Manipulations. Later colonial versions made Anansi more of a clown than a strategist, dulling his edge as a survival teacher. Modern echo. Corporate consultants who take credit for the work of their teams. Impact on thinking. Encourages belief that intelligence can subvert brute force, but also warns about exploitation disguised as charm. Hermes steals Apollo's cattle grease. C. 8c. BC. Original plot. As a newborn, Hermes steals Apollo's cattle and hides their tracks by making them walk backward. He later charms Apollo with the gift of the lyre to settle the dispute. The real code. Obfuscate your trail. Hide wrongdoing with creative misdirection. Turn an enemy into an ally by offering unexpected value. Manipulations. Framed as playful mischief, downplaying the calculated diplomacy in the resolution. Modern echo. Competitors absorbing rivals through acquisition after initial sabotage. Impact on thinking. Teaches that a good peace offering can erase a crime if it creates mutual benefit. Coyote and the Fire, Native North America. Oral Antiquity. Original plot. Humans suffer in the cold until Coyote steals fire from the fire beings. He passes it along through a relay of animals until it reaches humanity. The real code. Theft framed as moral duty if it redistributes power to the disadvantaged. Team coordination amplifies the trickster's reach. Manipulations. Later children's retellings remove the redistribution theme, keeping only the prank element. Modern echo. Whistleblowers leaking information for public benefit. Impact on thinking. Shifts the moral weight from stealing to liberating when the goal is collective survival. Raven creates the world Pacific Northwest coast. Oral antiquity. Original plot. Raven tricks a chief into releasing the sun, moon, and stars, freeing light for the world. The real code. Deception can unlock monopolized resources. Changing the balance of power can reshape the environment for all. Manipulations. Colonial-era versions framed Raven as selfish rather than as a reluctant liberator. Modern echo. Hackers exposing locked-away scientific data. Impact on thinking. Reinforces the idea that clever disruption can have long-lasting benefits beyond the trickster. Phase 2. Cross-cultural variants. The same playbook in different skins. Loki outsmarts the builder's Norse. Oral antiquity. Written C. 13th C. Original plot. A giant offers to build the walls of Asgard in exchange for the sun, the moon, and the goddess Freya. Loki promises the gods that he can trick the giant into failing the contract. Disguised as a mayor, Loki lures away the giant's horse, delaying the work past the deadline. The real code. Break a deal without breaking the terms. Use loopholes to avoid paying the cost. Disguise and misdirection as tactical tools. Manipulations. Later adaptations play up Loki's chaos-loving nature, downplaying the surgical precision of his sabotage. Modern echo. Corporate lawyers inserting poison pill clauses to kill hostile takeovers. Impact on thinking. Encourages seeing clever contract breaking as morally acceptable if it protects your group. Krishna steals the butter India. C. 3RD to 2NDC. BCE texts. Older oral roots. Original plot. Young Krishna repeatedly steals butter from villagers, hiding and outwitting those who try to catch him. The real code. Cultivate charm to disarm those you exploit. Repetition of small thefts spreads risk while building a legend. Manipulations. Transformed into devotional tales, emphasizing divine play, rather than resource hoarding or redistribution. Modern echo. Celebrity scandals reframed as harmless antics, instead of patterns of exploitation. Impact on thinking. Shows how charisma can turn a crime into a beloved story. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King China. 16th C. Novel from older folklore. Original plot. Born from stone, Sun Wukong gains supernatural powers and defies heaven itself, stealing peaches of immortality, defeating celestial armies, and outwitting gods before being bound into service. The real code. Knowledge and audacity can overturn rigid hierarchies, at least temporarily. Even the best trickster eventually faces containment. Manipulations. Later telling stress is redemption and service to the Buddha, reframing rebellion as a youthful mistake. Modern echo. Tech disruptors eventually bought in to the same corporate systems they challenged. Impact on thinking. Reinforces that while cunning can overthrow authority, systems will seek to domesticate it. Br'er Rabbit and the Tar Baby African American folklore. 19th C. Original plot. Br'er Rabbit gets stuck to a tar figure after attacking it in anger, having been baited into a trap by Br'er Fox. He begs not to be thrown into the briar patch, his true home, and is punished by being set free. The real code. Manipulate your captor into giving you exactly what you want. Play weakness to provoke an opponent into overplaying their hand. Manipulations. Later Disney versions softened the racial and survival context of the story. Modern echo. Defendants baiting prosecutors into choosing a venue or conditions favorable to the defense. Impact on thinking. Shows that pretending vulnerability can be a decisive offensive move. Nasreddin Hodge's Wisdom Middle East. C. 13th to 15th. Original plot. The folk philosopher Nasreddin uses absurd humor and riddles to expose the folly of others, from corrupt judges to pompous scholars. The real code. Humor can smuggle truth past censorship. Public ridicule undermines authority without direct confrontation. Manipulations. Modern retellings strip away political bite, framing them as harmless jokes. Modern echo. Political satire as a way to question leaders without direct rebellion. Impact on thinking. Teaches that ridicule can erode power more effectively than open defiance. Phase 3. Historical and political uses of trickery. Cunning as statecraft. The wooden horse of Troy, Greece, CE, 8C, BCE. Original plot. After a decade of siege, the Greeks hide soldiers inside a massive wooden horse, presented as a gift to Troy. The Trojans bring it inside their walls, allowing the hidden warriors to open the gates at night. The real code. Hide your threat inside something desirable. Let the enemy deliver the danger into their own stronghold. Manipulations. Framed as heroic cunning, glossing over the moral questions of deceit in war. Modern echo. Malware hidden in seemingly harmless downloads. Literal Trojan programs. Impact on thinking. Teaches that the best traps are those your target willingly accepts. Zhuge Ling's Empty City Stratagem China. 3rd C. CE. Original plot. Facing an overwhelming enemy force, Zhuge Ling orders the gates opened and sits calmly playing a lute, convincing the attackers it's an ambush. They retreat without a fight. The real code. Confidence can weaponize doubt. Sometimes the best defense is appearing too dangerous to attack. Manipulations. Were told as a story of mystical genius, overshadowing its psychological warfare element. Modern echo. Security forces use invisible but fake defenses to deter crime or attack. Impact on thinking. Shows that fear of the unknown can be stronger than visible resistance. Operation Mincemeat World War II, 1943. Original plot. British intelligence plants false invasion plans on a corpse dressed as a Royal Marine officer, which washes up on Spanish shores. The documents convince Germany to misallocate defenses. The real code. Plant false evidence in a believable package. Use neutral or third parties to deliver misinformation. Manipulations. Presented as daring spycraft. Less attention paid to ethical debates about deception in war. Modern echo. Corporate misinformation leaks designed to misdirect competitors. Impact on thinking. Reinforces the idea that truth is whatever the target can be made to believe. The Cambridge 5 Cold War, 1930s to 1950s. Original plot. 5 British intelligence officers secretly worked for the Soviet Union, passing critical information for decades. The real code. Position inside trusted networks gives exponential leverage. Cunning thrives in systems that assume loyalty. Manipulations. Media coverage fixated on ideological betrayal rather than systemic vulnerability. Modern echo. Insider leaks of corporate strategy to rivals or activist groups. Impact on thinking. Underscores that trust without verification is a structural weakness. Watergate burglary and cover-up United States, 1972. Original plot. A break-in at the Democratic National Committee HQ leads to the exposure of a massive political spying and sabotage network. The real code. Cunning fails when operational secrecy collapses. The cover-up often causes more damage than the original trick. Manipulations. Framed as a scandal of individuals, masking its systemic roots in election manipulation. Modern echo. Data breaches followed by PR spin that becomes the bigger story than the breach itself. Impact on thinking. Shows that trickery in politics isn't rare, just rarely caught in time to matter. Phase 4. Modern and pop culture trickery. Outsmarting the system on screen and in the streets. Ocean's 11 2001 film. Remake of 1960 original. Original plot. A crew of con artists robs 3 Las Vegas casinos simultaneously using elaborate misdirection, fake equipment, and social engineering. The real code. Divide the opponent's attention across multiple threats. Combine technical skill with psychological manipulation for maximum effect. Manipulations. Framed as a slick fantasy, avoiding any critique of real-world systems that make such heists feasible. Modern Echo, coordinated activist protests that overwhelm law enforcement resources through simultaneous actions. Impact on thinking, teaches that coordination and deception can beat even fortified, well-resourced targets. Catch Me If You Can 2002 film. Original plot. Based on the true story of Frank Abagnale Jr., who impersonates pilots, doctors, and lawyers to cash fraudulent checks and live luxuriously. The real code. Appear to belong, and systems won't question you. Credentials are often taken at face value. Manipulations. The real-life consequences are softened by framing the protagonist as charming and likable. Modern Echo. Fake LinkedIn profiles and diploma mills creating professional credibility out of thin air. Impact on thinking. Shows that appearance and confidence often matter more than actual qualification. Mr. Robot 2015 to 2019. Original plot. A hacker collective aims to erase global debt by attacking corporate data systems, using infiltration, coding, and social manipulation. The real code. Systems depend on trust in their own digital records. Compromise that, and you compromise the system. Trickery can scale globally with the right technology. Manipulations. Stylized as anti-hero drama, downplaying the real-world vulnerabilities of finance infrastructure. Modern Echo. Ransomware attacks on hospitals, utilities, and corporate networks. Impact on thinking. Reinforces that modern trickery isn't just street level, it's infrastructural. The Sting 1973 film. Original plot. Two con men stage an elaborate fake betting operation to swindle a crime boss out of his money. The real code. Create a false but immersive environment where the mark believes they are winning. Control all the inputs the target sees. Manipulations. Framed as lighthearted entertainment, blurring the moral complexity of exploiting greed. Modern Echo. Pump and dump crypto schemes run through fake trading platforms. Impact on thinking. Shows that the most convincing lies are the ones the victim wants to be true. The Yes Men activist pranksters. 1990s present. Original plot. The Yes Men impersonate corporate and government representatives at conferences and on TV, making absurd statements that expose hidden truths about policy and industry. The real code. Impersonation can be a truth weapon when official narratives are false. Satire creates plausible deniability while delivering a political hit. Manipulations. Media often treats their work as comedy stunts rather than targeted political commentary. Modern Echo. Deepfake activists and parody accounts revealing corporate or state hypocrisy. Impact on thinking. Reinforces that sometimes the best way to challenge power is to act as if you are that power and show the world what it really looks like. Codex Fragment. The Trickster's Handbook. Rule 1. Hide the knife in the gift. Deliver danger inside something the target desires. Rule 2. Disguise the trail. Make them think they found the answer when you've only shown them what you want them to see. Rule 3. Use their strength against them. Turn an opponent's power, greed, or overconfidence into their undoing. Rule 4. Wear the mask. Act like you belong. Credentials and confidence can bypass real barriers. Rule 5. Play the fool. Pretend to be weak, ignorant, or harmless until the moment you strike. Rule 6. Make the lie beautiful. The best cons are the ones the victim wants to believe. Rule 7. Team the trick. Cunning multiplies when coordinated. Use allies for distraction, delivery, and escape. Rule 8. Know when to vanish. The longer you linger after the trick works, the greater the risk of reversal. Synthesis. Law 6 in full view. From Anansi's webs to Mr. Robot's hacks, the same operational truth holds. When force is impossible, deception is essential. The trickster wins not by overpowering, but by outpositioning. Control the narrative and the inputs, and you control the opponent's perception and their decisions. Ancient tools. Disguise. Riddles. Hidden weapons. Decoy gifts. coded speech, modern tools, phishing emails, social engineering, brand impersonation, deepfakes, media hoaxes. Impact on humanity. Trickery stories train the mind to see cracks in the system, to identify exploitable gaps in power structures. They normalize the idea that the powerless can win, but only if they stop playing fair. They also serve as a warning. Every trickster eventually meets someone better at the game.